Good evening. Welcome to Reflections on Granby. My name is Mike Malloy, and I'll be your host this evening. Today's date is April 28th, 2012. Our guest tonight is Roger Hernsdorf, a 41-year resident of Granby. He's 74 years old, and he lives on Barndore Hills Road. Good evening, Roger. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Mike.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we're going to be having your wife on right after, so you got to get all the answers right. I see why. I was thinking about it. That's why she picked to go second. So
there you go.
She can correct you.
Very good. Very good.
Okay, Roger. Okay, we'll start off. We always start off. Where were you born?
I was born in New Jersey.
Okay.
Living in Clifton, New Jersey.
Okay.
And goes back a few years, 1937. It's, most times my children look at that number and say, "Wow, Dad," even today.
Yeah.
But. And I was there until, I had gone through school there and to Fairleigh Dickinson University there.
Okay.
And then into the Army.
Yep.
And when I left New Jersey, it's military time was 1958, 59.
Okay, what are your earliest memories of your hometown? What were your...
Well, Clifton was larger than Granby.
Okay.
Fairly close to Paterson, New Jersey, which is a sizable city.
Okay.
And it was comfortable. It was a very, it's not actually inner city, but very, very close to it.
Okay.
And that two-family homes, next to two-family homes, on down, separated by 4 or 5 feet.
Right.
To a very tiny backyard.
Kind of row houses.
Right, row houses. Yeah, very typical. If you look in Simsbury, you'll see some situations of former company housing. That was the kind of stuff we grew up in.
Okay, what was the industry in your area that was...
Well, at that time it was the Hadley Company, and I grew up on Hadley Avenue.
Okay.
And I can't even tell you what they did. It was something in processed paper manufacturing, either stationery or envelopes or something of that nature. Yeah. But they were long gone, except for a block or two away, one tired-looking brick building with faded paint on the side that said the Hadley Corp.
It's amazing during that era. People don't understand now how much manufacturing was actually done in the United States, and there was still. I mean, that was when some of it was phasing out, but until after World War II, there were factories in almost every big town. Many factories.
You bet.
Produced everything.
Yeah, very much so. Northern Jersey, which is where Clifton is, was very, very full of manufacturing and close enough to New York to also give the Garden State, which is what Jersey has, tongue-in-cheek as their name when you think of New Jersey today. But the truck gardens supplied New York City.
Really?
With their produce.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. Before refrigeration was a big deal.
You had to grow it within a certain distance of a major, your major market.
Right.
So you grew up there. What are your memories of going to school there, and what was it? What was
well, it's a very big brick building with a number of floors.
Okay.
and you don't see a lot of that in Granby.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. But it was fairly large. I think back to my high school graduating class, which was over 500 students, and that gives you a relative size, compared to, roughly 110 or 20 in Granby.
Right. Now, what did your parents do?
Well, my parents, that's sort of interesting too. And while my mom was born here, she came from a German family.
Okay.
And my dad came here as an immigrant at the age of 19.
Oh, wow. Okay.
From Germany.
Okay.
He was a skilled cabinet maker, as young as he was. He arrived at Ellis Island on his 19th birthday. And was, as I say, almost a workaholic, and he worked very, very hard and diligently, and we had a comfortable home and family, and I can still remember when World War II was. I was a little guy, of course, but one of his concerns was, I wish I didn't have this German accent.
Right, yeah, it wasn't the most popular accent right about then, was
That's
it?
right. And he used to say...
At least they were treated better than the Japanese in California.
There you are, right. There you are. Oh boy, that was a shame,
Yeah.
But he'd say, I guess I've got to work twice as hard because of my accent, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It was good. It was fun.
That kind of changed after the war, though, I would
Yeah.
assume.
Yeah, it did.
So you grew up in a fairly suburban, or actually urban area.
Close to urban, yes. Yeah. If you ran down the road a few miles or a mile and a half into Paterson, you were into a city with well over 150,000 population, and
Right.
you think of Hartford is roughly the same size, so
Yeah.
that was close to an urban environment.
Now, what was the demographic then? Was it a fairly were there a lot of immigrants, or was it a fairly diverse?
Quite a few.
Yeah.
It was quite diverse. Clifton was considered at that time a blue-collar town, and it really was. There were an awful lot of folks who had what they used to refer to as the meat can, the lunch pail.
Yeah, yeah.
Who would walk to the corner and get on the bus and go to work.
That's
And they had the transit thing down because we were half a block from Main Avenue, Clifton.
people didn't have cars.
That's right.
If you lived in the
That's
city.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember the people vying for parking places in front of these houses that were so close together.
Right.
Parking on the street. Garages really didn't exist.
Right, right.
Pretty much room for one, maybe two cars in front of the house.
Okay.
But it was really a one car to a family environment.
So you had to get your spot early in the night,
Right,
and not move.
And then the growling started when it snowed and somebody shoveled a spot and someone else took it.
Right. Right. Yeah, there's always something. Huh? Yeah. So you grew up. So you went to high school there.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Clifton High.
Yep.
Graduated in 1955.
Okay. And where did you go directly from there?
To Fairleigh Dickinson, what was then college and became university a year later.
Okay.
Which was a commuter school for me because the campus was in Rutherford, New Jersey, basically an 8 or 9 mile drive from home.
And what was your degree direction?
Chemistry.
Chemistry. Okay. Yeah.
And I've never worked at it a day in my life.
Really, I've heard that story a lot from
Yeah,
that era.
yeah,
It was a lot of flux
Yes,
in the work. I think you're going to start to see some of that now again.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too.
So you got your degree in chemistry?
Yep.
Okay, 4 years, 2 years?
Yeah, 4.
4-year
And,
degree in
yeah.
chemistry. Okay.
Yeah, and that was sort of split up in a way in that I did 2 years days,
Okay.
and then for a reason that I'm still searching, I went into the Army
Okay.
and spent some time there, obviously, and came back and finished up nights.
So
which
it wasn't, you weren't drafted, you actually signed
Right.
up. Okay,
Signed
so
up.
after 4 years of college, you needed...
Yep. Well, after two, but I did get the 4
Okay.
because
All right.
I went
Came
back nights.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
By then I was married
Yep.
and go to work, and children kept appearing for some reason, and it was a simple matter of go to school nights to finish up.
Okay, so
It's very interesting at that time too
what were
because
you... Okay, go ahead.
the night faculty was very, very talented.
Really? Okay.
People who worked at those jobs during the daytime taught it at night,
Really?
so it was
Okay.
very practical.
So it was a pretty... There was a lot of people out of war in the GI Bill. And
Oh, yeah.
that was a very... The country was geared towards retooling, re-educating. It was...
Well, when I started in 1955, I believe it was the last year of the original GI Bill,
Okay.
which goes back to the end of World War II.
Okay.
And the class was full of veterans taking advantage of that opportunity.
So they were taking advantage of the last...
Right? There was a last shot
Yeah,
for
right.
the big one,
Right.
because it was a fully paid thing.
Right.
So the freshman class was probably 1/3 veterans.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, very interesting.
Interesting. So you got your you finished up your degree. What were you doing during the day when you were what were you doing as a job to support the family?
I was with IBM Corporation.
Okay.
Yeah, selling in a division that no longer exists. It was they called it the ET division, the Electric Typewriter Division.
Okay.
I sold the electric typewriters and associated
No kidding.
equipment with that.
Yeah.
And
So you
actually,
you got out of the Army and you went. Okay. Well, just real quickly, what did you do in the Army?
well, in the Army, I started as an enlisted man.
Okay.
I was fortunate enough to be selected to go to officer candidate school.
Okay.
Went through there at Fort Sill in the artillery school, got a commission, and I spent the next 2 years out at Fort Sill, mainly teaching Vietnamese second lieutenants who
Okay.
came to the States to learn their side of the support of the war that was going on there.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And
So what? Just briefly, because this is a fascinating little part of history here. What were you teaching them?
well, I had been heavily schooled in field artillery survey,
Okay.
and I had also worked in detection of enemy artillery locations,
Okay.
which was done by what they called sound ranging, done with microphones separated by very specific distances that you could pick up triangulation of the sound.
Really?
And also flash ranging, which is a visual one with scopes set at a distance, which triangulate, and you can come back and determine where the fire is coming from.
So there's a formula that they employ to try to. Oh, really?
Right.
So you were teaching them how to identify the source of their aggressor in the field.
That's
basically.
Exactly. Right.
Interesting. Wow.
Right. Yeah.
Most people, if you never, been exposed to it, you wouldn't realize how scientific it really is.
It really it was fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And I was fairly good in math, and I guess that's why the Army picked me. They say the Army sometimes doesn't pick right, but
No, in this case,
it worked for me.
Good. So you get out of the Army, you're back in, and what were you were selling in the sales at IBM that you got your first job? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And from there, I went to a company by the name of Systems Manufacturing Corporation. I sold for a short while in New Jersey, and they promoted me to National Sales Manager.
Okay.
And I moved up to Vestal, New York, next to Binghamton.
Okay.
And worked in that corporation for a while.
And what did they sell?
Data processing furniture. It was, those were the days of mainframes, and mainframes.
Right.
And corporations love to show off their mainframes. And we sold a very extensive line of furniture that would do the practical tasks as well as the handsome tasks of
impressing people.
Impressing, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So what did the furniture do? What did it?
Stood there. It's furniture.
Really?
Yeah.
So you'd sold.
It was specialized for such things as a table, the right width, color, height that would fit in front of a processor of some kind.
Really?
To
So
give
you
support.
did almost like custom furniture.
Yeah, it was custom.
To fit around mainframe computers.
That's correct.
What a niche.
That's correct.
Huh?
Yeah.
Wow. So
And,
you had your own line of.
Yeah. And it's interesting because that, in a way, made the determination of how I got to Granby.
Okay.
I was 3 years. I was up there as national sales manager.
Right.
And my family was growing, and I was looking for something other than the New York City type environment.
Raise a family.
To raise a family.
Yeah.
Right.
It's one thing to have little kids running around. But
That's right.
Get into a school system.
I love New England and just made the basic decision. As a family, we said, how about going to New England somewhere?
Okay.
And we narrowed it down.
Yeah.
And just started looking at various spots here. And I knew as national sales manager that there were certain areas of opportunity in the country that we weren't covering well.
Okay.
I made the decision to basically demote myself and send myself out to be a regional manager.
Okay.
Because I saw Springfield, Massachusetts and Hartford, Connecticut very close together.
Right.
And I said, if I lived someplace sort of between them,
Yeah.
that would be a very nice territory to sell these products into.
Okay.
And
so you looked at the lineup of businesses that were there that you could sell to, and what?
Right.
Okay.
Right. And there's some wonderful ones with great data centers, the insurance companies, obviously, on both sides.
Right.
I mean, Mass Mutual became a great client, as well as the Travelers and the Hartford and so forth. And but finding the place in Granby was interesting because I was looking for a place that had some water.
Okay.
A lake.
Okay.
I lived on a lake in North Jersey, had a little sailboat. It was fun to have.
Yeah.
And I said, that would be nice to get back there and do that again.
Yeah.
And I looked at a Texaco road map, and there was a little unidentified lake in North Granby. I found out later sort of behind where the Cossett Library is. I went up looking for it to see what the lake was like.
So you literally just looked at a map and found a body of water.
Yeah.
And went looked at it.
Yeah. I'd worked with maps in the Army, so I learned to interpret them.
That's an interesting way to look for a house. Yeah.
Didn't have a name on it. And I went to the Cossett Library, and the librarian, I said, where is this lake? I showed her the map, and she said, there isn't a lake there. Turned out that Texaco, who had made the map, hired a map maker, and map makers spend all the money to make a map. They put fictitious things in a map to catch someone who copies their map and doesn't pay them for the rights.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But anyway,
this is like some sort of fairy tale.
It's a little aside.
Of a fictitious lake.
Yeah, it was a little aside. Exactly, that's what it was.
Right.
A search for a fictitious
Amazing.
lake.
Yeah.
But in any case, we loved the town.
Yeah.
And found an older home on Wells Road.
Okay.
Was priced right. I don't even want to talk about the prices compared to today's market.
Oh, no, I know.
They were gigiveaway things by
Yeah.
comparison.
$10,000 houses
Yeah.
everywhere. Yeah.
Actually, this was 30,000.
Oh, okay, so this was a few years.
Had 5 acres.
Oh, it was huge.
And it was fun. And that was the first of 3 houses in town. And
And what year was that?
that was 1971.
Okay, so I was thinking there's the early '60s or $10,000-$15,000 houses.
71.
But there was.
Yep.
So you had. So you moved in '71 to Granby, and how many children did you have at that point?
3.
How old were they?
And at the time, let's see, 2 were going to the Wells Road School, which is right up the street. Walk
Okay.
up the street. And so they were in 2nd, 3rd grade.
Right.
And 1 was ready to start kindergarten.
Okay.
Okay.
What were their names?
And,
What are-
well, let's see. My oldest, Dale,
Yep.
who now lives in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Okay. Bryce lives on Loveland Road.
Okay.
And Kelly lives on Mountain Road.
Okay. So 2 of them stuck around.
2 of them, yep, they came back.
Oh, okay.
That's
They
good.
went-
That's
yeah,
good. Yeah. And Dale comes back as often as she can.
Okay.
Loves it. Yeah. So
So you're on Wells Road. You got
We're on Wells
three
Road.
three kids that are going to school, and, and what was your career looking like at that point? How did you do with the?
it
Did
was
the market
going well.
bear fruit as you expected it to? I mean, was it?
It did. It was a very good market, and there were some corporate changes over the years. Obviously, I
Right.
was working down in New Haven, and eventually the company asked me to take on a salesman to work the lower area, Fairfield County and Westchester County, New York. So I supervised that particular salesman
Right.
for the corporation, and but I got the itch to start my own company.
Okay.
And I did eventually.
How old were you at that point?
Let's see, I moved here about when I was roughly
I always feel like
30.
I'm grilling people for years. It's
No,
always-
there's 30-ish, 31 maybe, something when I first moved here.
Right.
So I started information products when I was about 34, I'm guessing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And
40.
basically, I represented the company that I had worked as a direct sales agent for.
Yeah.
And I gradually added some equipment lines to fill it out and become a more full line sales operation.
Okay.
Ultimately, we expanded beyond that and started to get into the software area as well. And today I really am not in the furniture business at all. In some ways I say thank God. But basically the software area has been information products.
So you still own your company? You're still?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you first came to, well, why don't we finish talking about your career first? So you start your company. What were the first few years like? Was it as rosy as you expected?
Well, it was a building time.
Yeah.
But I was very, very fortunate in that I made some good connections with some of the major insurance companies.
Okay.
And they had growing data centers, and frankly, in those days, Travelers had a data center on Windsor Street in Hartford, which took a square city block practically.
Right.
And that was a great place to work for a long time. The Hartford, of course, there, and then it added Simsbury, and I did some major work at Simsbury when they opened up that facility.
The big campus over. Yeah.
Right. And then down to Southern New England Tel in New Haven, which was in an expansion mode as well, and doing a great amount of work. So there was a lot of work, and the company did well. Very pleased with it.
Yeah. So you're raising your children in Granby. You're living in Granby. You're started your own business. Let's step back just a minute. What was your first impression of Granby when you drove into town? Do you remember that, or one of your first?
I guess we liked it because Who knows? It may have been a combination of weather.
Yeah, it was a beautiful
the type
day.
of homes. It was a beautiful day, right? Exactly. Lovely homes.
Yeah.
Salmon Brook Street has always been a very attractive street.
Right.
At least the majority of it.
Yeah.
And we had a very positive impression of the town.
Okay.
And went looking for someone in the real estate business to talk to.
Okay.
And found some folks who were very congenial and helped us.
Okay. Now you had a you liked the town. What is it? What if you were to compare then and now? What are the changes you've seen? I mean, what were the? I mean, sometimes it's easier to establish some contrast. What are the biggest changes that you've seen in town?
Well, it's interesting. I thought of Granby at that time almost as a farming community.
Yeah.
Although that was on the wane by then, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
But coming from a more closed environment, if you are close environment,
right,
it still had that impression. It was a very friendly town.
Was it? Yeah.
Tremendously friendly.
Right.
Remember, I was raised in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Okay, New Jersey, New York City, avoid eye contact at all costs.
Not so much, right. Yeah. I always say the tri-state area is one of the most, especially those boroughs and towns and the counties right around New York, are one of the least friendly. At least once you get to know people, it's not
true.
But there's so many people. I think people go into their little zone. Although if you get into the city itself, Manhattan, it changes. It's a little more. It's funny.
And parts of Manhattan are different from other parts of Manhattan.
Absolutely, that's for sure.
Very much so. There's always Greenwich Village.
So you ended up. So the contrast was there was an easygoing, friendly atmosphere that you
very much so.
Yeah.
A population was probably half the size of what it is today.
Okay.
And I was fascinated by the fact that local government was so accessible.
Yep.
The drummer had just started.
The Granby
drummer had just started. Yep. And I met someone who asked me to help out with the drummer.
Okay.
I did.
Yep.
I was the advertising manager. That's the fellow who runs around and gets the ads.
Right.
For a little while.
You were a salesman, right?
Yeah, that's right. And that worked, and I met a lot of people very quickly because of it.
Right.
And through the merchants who were here and other people as well. So that was a good kickoff for me, and my wife was heavily involved in things like the Cossett Library staff and what have you.
So you guys dove right into the community.
Yeah.
You found it. Did your wife work? Well, we'll have your wife on in a few minutes. She can tell us.
Actually, that's an interesting story in itself. It's a different wife.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
That's great. Yeah.
And she will have the story herself.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay.
So,
but, and she will tell you about her 4 children.
Okay.
Which means our 7 children.
Yeah, it's a big house. Right? So you started your business. You're in town. And any characters from that era that you remember? Those early '70s or mid '70s? Any folks from town that struck you as being particularly impressionable?
Well, yes,
or impressive.
Impressive. Of course, I met the Wilhelm family early on when I was here.
Okay.
Fred Wilhelm.
We've had him on. Yeah.
Yep. And Fred was
Still
very
working
active.
on his wife.
Yep. Oh, good. She's a great stud.
Yeah,
She's
I know.
A great person.
Yeah.
And Fred was very open and helpful and meeting some people and what have you. And
he's a great guy.
He is terrific. Yeah. Just a terrific man. And actually, Fred did some suggestion that I get involved in politics as well.
Okay.
And that's the thread that leads to some things.
Yeah.
Introduced me to some folks, and
it's like the camel under the tent.
That's right.
The tent, once they're under it. Yeah.
That's right. Wouldn't you like to do this? Yeah.
So what did you do?
Actually, I ended up on the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
But in 1975, which is 4 years
didn't take
after
long.
I got. No, it really didn't. It really didn't. So I say I met quite a few folks through the drummer, and there was a vacancy, and I had done some presentation work for one of the budgets. The Cossett was sort of under semi-attack with cutting the hours back and what have you,
Right.
and there was some concern that we should go to the library board and make this presentation about how we were the most efficient library in town and why pick on us.
Yeah.
And it was,
make your case.
And it was, we made our case, right?
Yeah.
And then someone said, hey, he spoke pretty well. There's a vacancy. Why don't you put the two of them together? And that's how it happened.
I'm involved in East Granby, and that's what you're always looking for, the people that stand up at the meeting.
Absolutely.
If you stand up and make a good point,
You
look
bet.
out. You got a target on you. Right?
You bet.
So,
You bet.
anyway.
Yeah. And that's actually where my business is located now, is East Granby.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, so it's a tough commute.
One way is downhill, one way is a little more up. Right?
That's it.
Anyway, so you have so you got involved with the Board of Selectmen. What for people that haven't been involved in any boards or committees or anything like that? What was your initial impression of getting involved at that level? What was?
Well, it's an educational process. You get involved in so many things, which include obviously the budget. And the budget opens your eyes to a lot of areas that you just take for granted.
Right.
And there's so many commitments that towns make,
right.
Towns and cities make, that most people really aren't concerned with, so they don't involve themselves.
Right.
When you get on a major board like that, it all comes to life and for you. And you learn a lot about a town and about the people who come, who support certain things and not others. So
I'm going to ask you a tough question on that one, because
okay.
Would you? And this is probably do you think that the majority of people become more informed as they? Well, I phrase this a little differently. Are most people advocates of the causes that they care about?
It's a very good question. I'm now a member of the Republican Town Committee.
Okay.
There are 2 town committees in town, Democrats,
right.
Republicans.
Right.
Major job is to make sure that the people they put up for office
right.
have more than one issue.
Right.
And I think that's sort of where you were probably going with that.
Yeah.
But the mistake to take someone...
That's a good way to put it. Let me say. Yeah.
The mistake is to take someone who has this burning desire to solve one problem.
The advocate.
And I don't care about anything else.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And that does not do good for the town.
Right.
So as far as I'm concerned, the most important part of both of those town committees is just that task, to make sure they select good, well-rounded people who can understand and give good advice on a broad range of
issues. Yeah.
Issues.
I think you touched on something that's extremely prescient, because what happens if you end up with folks that are overly strong advocates of a certain issue, it creates a pull the other direction.
Yep.
Because you have to balance that out.
That's right.
So instead of having, which we see in Washington a lot today, don't we? Instead of having a debate about the rational center, oftentimes it's a tug of war.
Absolutely.
And that can that happens. It's going to ebb and flow to a certain extent.
It happens, and that probably happens so much more on the national level.
Yeah.
And I think both parties at the Granby level understand our issues are very different from the national issues.
Absolutely, yeah.
And both parties do very, very well with understanding that.
Granby's a very well-balanced town politically, I think. I think you guys do a great job.
Yeah.
Okay, so getting off of politics, what were your other impressions of the town? You were involved on the Board of Selectmen, so you got to see the issues that were being. How long did you serve? How long did you?
At that time, I served for 4 years, two terms.
You did 2 terms?
Yep.
Okay, and what were the issues of the day?
Budget.
That never goes away.
It never goes away, right. Main issue of the day, education. Granby was coming out of a very rural educational environment at the time we moved here.
Yeah.
It was growing and getting better. They had a superintendent of the schools, had come in at the time, who had come from New York City.
Really?
Not as a superintendent there. Yeah, a change. Pat Starble, who did a wonderful job.
Right.
And basically, I believe, saved the accreditation of the schools.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. Did a fine job, and that was a major issue of that time.
Was it?
Yeah, and I believe that was a major issue in the forming of the Granby Drummer at that time.
Really?
Just to make a presentation on what had to be done to make things go right in Granby.
In terms of the education system?
Right.
Wow. So that.
It covered many other aspects, but that was a main thrust.
Yeah.
To make sure.
You guys have a separate foundation or group. What's it called? The
Citizens for a Better Granby.
Okay. Is that the one that there's one that just raises money specifically for the schools, isn't there?
Oh well. I'm not really sure.
I think
I mean,
have
the one that
excellence
raises
in it.
money for the schools is the tax base, of course.
Yeah,
you
well,
know, but as far as a
I thought
specific
they
one,
had a excellence in education, Granby.
I believe they do, but I can't tell you much about
Yeah,
that
yeah.
charter.
But so Citizens for a Better Granby, did that form in that era also?
Yeah.
So there was a real lot of, oftentimes crisis creates
Absolutely.
the changes we need.
You bet.
So that was truly the case in this instance. Yeah. Any what were the I mean, you just touched on so many really fascinating things. You go in all kinds of. What do you have? Do you think anything could have been done different? And this is a question that's always a little loaded. Is there looking back, is there anything you would change about the last 30 years in Granby, knowing as much as you do about? And I always preface this by saying hindsight's 20/20.
Yep.
Is there anything that would have avoided some issue that came up, or is there anything? In Granby, I always think of the rapid growth that went on.
Oh, yes.
I mean, they actually had a building moratorium in the west side of Granby, didn't they, at one point?
Yeah. Well, there were times when it was discouraged, let's put it that way.
Okay, yeah.
But basically, I think the good things that happened is the encouragement toward open space and saving the environment has grown and grown and grown in this town.
Okay.
It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
That really started at that time.
Okay.
That I arrived here, or shortly after.
Yeah.
And that's alive and well. And without that, things could have been very different.
Okay.
Large tracts of land could have not been large tracts of land.
Development could have run wild.
That's right. That's right. The tax, we were saved in some way by the fact that taxes did not drop low, even though we had no industry, basically. A very small amount of industry as your commercial tax base. But still there was this, you could have had a building boom with 100 by 100 lots.
Right.
And been driven into an education budget much different than the one that we live with today.
Not to mention a different town.
That's right.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah, I think Granby and there's a lot of towns that kind of came into that more, for lack of a better word, enlightened version of zoning, in terms where you looked at the whole picture instead of just, that came out of the 50s and 60s with the tract style mentality. But I think a lot of towns just came into that understanding just in time.
Yes.
I mean, because there were some pretty big building booms. I know in East Granby there were some tracts of land that almost got developed too.
That's correct.
It's amazing.
That's correct. And it's wonderful to save them, because once they're gone, they are gone forever.
They are, yeah.
That's it.
So that was the good things. Anything that you would do differently?
No, there really isn't. And I stayed close to the political scene.
Yeah.
Although now I'm in really a very neutral situation. I'm the treasurer of the town, but that's an appointed position. It's not elected.
In Granby, it's still appointed.
In Granby.
Okay,
Yeah, it's still appointed. And
so for a chemistry degree, you've really moved more in business and finance world.
That's true.
Yeah.
And finance is, fortunately, shall I say, easier at a municipal level.
Right.
Because you really don't have to deal with paying taxes. You have to deal with collecting taxes.
Yeah, your budget's your income is pretty set.
That's right. Exactly.
You don't have to sell it. You sell your budget every year, but there's not going to be much change.
True. And the financial wizards who figure out how to save money in taxes aren't necessary on a municipal budget. Since you don't pay them.
Yeah, you don't have to be too creative in terms of, you have certain roles that you have to fill.
Absolutely.
And I think you touched on that earlier.
Yeah.
And the understanding of how many roles there really are.
Well, there are so many that you're right, so many. And the finance of the town is so critical, because obviously there are folks who want lower taxes at all costs.
Right.
That's a pun there somewhere, but let's not.
No. Yeah, right.
Let's not go there.
At all costs.
And on the other side, there are people who say, you don't collect enough taxes. We need more in our educational budget, or we need more of this, more of that.
I think that the double-edged sword of that one, though, is usually the people that want more money for a specific cause tend not to want to raise taxes either.
That's right.
That's usually,
They want one aspect of the tax to raise.
That was kind of my question earlier, where I was touching. I often find that people are in favor of spending as long as it's for them.
That's right.
And not to be, I mean, I'm not being overly cynical here, but it seems to be you can sell it a lot easier. It's something that...
Yeah, if folks get interested in this, they should really go to the meetings that are open, that the budgets are discussed, and you'll see how the sides get together very quickly, and how people will walk up to that microphone who wouldn't dare walk up to it for any other reason.
Right.
And you can measure a town very easily by the demeanor of folks who come up.
You're right. Yeah. Now you feel so. Overall, you've been very impressed with democracy in Granby. It sounds
Absolutely.
like. Yeah, that's a great place to be. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have the if you were I mean, we'll change the question a little bit. If you were to do one thing for the town, I mean, this is probably a more positive way to word the question. If there was anything you could do with all your years of experience in Granby, is there one thing you would, assuming cost and is no issue, and maintaining it's no issue? You know, it'd be nice to have a huge park, but you still got to pay the guys to take care of it, right? But if there was nothing, no limitation, I refer to this as my magic wand question. If you,
in a way, that magic wand has just hit.
Has it? Well, you're a hell of an optimist.
Yeah, I mean, we just passed the bond issue.
Yes.
In the town of Granby. A part of it was the athletic fields for the high school.
Okay, so that was a big void.
It was a huge void.
Yeah.
We had teams, we have teams, and will until it's all corrected now, who had their home games away at the other school.
Right.
And it just wasn't right in my mind.
No.
Not that I was a strong worker for it, but I was certainly positively working for it. And it has happened, and I'll find another one.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong.
Give it a touch back in a year or so.
That's right.
There's always something you want to fix in your town.
Right.
But that's great to hear. It's nice to be just that close to something you solved.
Yeah.
It really is a good feeling. So, Granby has a school system that's big enough that it's you're right, it should have some of those things.
That's right.
But you guys have done a pretty good job. You've invested in the schools over the last several years.
We're very proud of them.
Yeah.
Very proud.
It's a good job.
You've got wonderful staff and stable.
Yeah.
Both on the town side and the school side.
So you were on the Board of Selectmen. You didn't run at one point. And
right, there were a number of years, but I did run again.
Okay. For Board of Selectmen.
For the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
I ran for the position of first selectman in 1991.
Okay.
And there was a change of administration going to happen, and I was asked by the Republicans to fill the position of first selectman. And I was honored to be asked, and I did. I took the task and spent 2 terms doing that.
So you were the first selectman of Granby for 2 terms.
Right.
Okay, so 4 years.
Right.
Okay, so you have a 4-year cycle. You get you get bored.
Can't take much more beyond that.
That's not a bad way to go through life, by the way.
That's true. That's true.
Stick around much longer than that. I was talking to
as long as you have 4 years left, it's great.
Well, you know, somebody once said to me, "There's always 1 or 2 people that don't like what you're doing, and the more terms you run, the more of those people."
There's no question. I've always said that every time you make a decision, you make someone happy.
Yeah.
And not necessarily so the second one.
Right. Hopefully it's 2 to 1 on a regular basis.
There you are.
Right? Then you're doing okay. So this was in the 80s?
90s.
90s. Okay.
91 to 95.
Okay, so the town manager's been the same through this whole...
Absolutely.
Yeah, Bill?
Bill Smith.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you must have had a good relationship with him.
Yes, I've known Bill since the day he came to town, and that I was on the Board of Selectmen that hired Bill.
Okay.
And
it's a good hire.
He's a very good hire. He is the longest unbroken term town manager in the state of Connecticut.
Yeah.
At this stage of the game. It's happened only in the past year.
Right.
Yeah, but he's
usually is a very contentious position.
Not bad for a 29-year-old guy. Huh?
No, but I'm just thinking of towns like Enfield and Manchester. Right. They go every 4 years. It's a
in and out,
meat grinder. Yeah. So
Bill's had his offers to go elsewhere to larger things, but he much prefers to be here.
Well, that's great. So, so you did 4 more years. Any other boards or commissions you've served? They must have dragged you into something else over there.
Oh, there have been a couple of things that happened, simple things like police selection commissions and things of that nature.
Right.
But the town treasurer has been now for a bunch of years.
Okay.
Yeah, and I enjoy it.
Is that your primary? You still own your company?
Yes.
Okay, let's just touch on that real quickly. What is that? What are you up to with that now? You said it evolved from furniture to make mainframes look good.
Well, we've done for many years very specialized computer programming that deals with for a long time specialty telephone products like interactive voice response systems.
Okay.
And we've done over the years a lot of annual corporate benefit enrollments by telephone, paperless enrollment of the benefit packages that corporations have.
You sell software that does this?
That's correct.
Okay, so
yeah, and it's a custom job of building these for.
Do you have
apps.
people that work for you that actually develop the software?
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah, everything we do is pretty much from the ground up.
And you're catering it to the client. And,
that's right.
Okay.
That's right. And at this stage of the game, we're adding to that. You know, we've done so much for telephone systems. We've had customers say, well, why don't you just take us over the whole system?
Right.
Recently, we've decided to do that.
So you're taking
So
over
we're going to the what they call voice over internet, or VoIP, Internet Protocol, and we're doing those systems.
How many people work for you, Rich?
6.
6.
Yeah.
And are they programmers, salespeople? What's the?
1 in sales, besides myself.
Okay.
And 4 programmers, and we use some specialty work from time to time with some people who we will hire.
Okay.
That will probably expand as we get more into the telephone systems because you'll need a bit more of a service on site to sell phone systems than just the software that backs them up.
Okay. So you'll need guys to set it up and actually do the hardware.
Yeah.
You need a few linemen.
Yeah, that's right. and it's interesting because I suspect the business will become more locally oriented, whereas with the other stuff, we have clients all over the country, and because we have the file servers in East Granby, we can communicate directly with their systems.
It's amazing what you can do without sending anybody out anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, it sounds like you're running full steam, right? You're 74 years old.
Right.
You show no signs of considering retirement here.
No, you know, occasionally Diane and I talk about it. Where would you, we've always asked the question, where would you like to go?
In the perfect world, where would you live?
I said to her, where do you want to retire to? And she laughed and said, where else besides Granby?
Right.
He said, 6 of our 7 children live here.
Yeah.
Everyone we know is here.
Yeah.
She's been here longer than I.
You get such a short commute for Thanksgiving.
That's true.
To work.
That's true.
Yeah, right.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. We lost one to Simsbury. But he can be forgiven.
That's close. 10-202 is a functioning road.
There you are.
So you have, wow, you've had quite a. Any other stories you'd like to share about your experiences in Granby? I mean, you've been.
Well, I'm sure there are a few, probably a few I don't want to share.
Yeah, well, either way, we want ratings too. Feel free to break some new ground here. You know?
No, I'm very fortunate to have known Diane for a long time.
Yeah.
We were married 13 plus years ago at this stage of the game.
Okay.
Her first husband was Otto Newman, who was a good friend of mine.
Okay.
Had simple surgery that went wrong at Hartford Hospital at the age of 55 and passed away very quickly.
Yeah.
And she was a widow for, I think, about 8 years.
Okay.
And
so you were single at the time?
That's right. And in that period of time, we knew each other. I had known her for 30 years, I guess, or 25 by then. Right. And gradually we just decided that it would be nice to get together. And our children have known each other since they were that big.
Right.
All went to school through the Granby schools.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Together, and they've known each other pretty much 7 children covering 7 years. I mean, that's the way families build.
Yeah. That was a pretty productive period.
So it's been a very good marriage for us.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, that's good to hear. So let me just, I always ask this question to folks. You have a unique perspective. I mean, you have 7 children, two marriages, and you have I'm sure you have grandchildren at this point.
Yes.
How many grandchildren do you have?
12.
Okay. It's a busy Christmas. You got to figure out tricks to manage those Christmases.
Absolutely.
So you have all these young folks that look up to you as a patriarch. What's your advice to young kids growing up? If you were to give advice to a young person growing up today, say, and getting ready to graduate high school, or even in the mid years of high school, what would that be? What would your advice be?
Get advice from your family.
Really?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
Building a strong family unit is probably the most critical thing that any family can do.
Yes.
Is to make sure that the children understand, they can come back for advice, hard advice, soft advice,
Right.
whatever it is. Keep it open enough that they can ask those hard questions.
Right.
To me, that's so important, because a good family will give good advice.
Okay, that's great. So develop your family unit.
Absolutely.
And work
Absolutely.
it. Yeah.
We'd have a lot fewer people in prison wondering why they got there or how they got there if they had followed a family advice system that worked.
Right.
That worked. Yeah.
That's the ultimate network, isn't it? We always reach outside of our family, but you always come back to your siblings and your parents.
Absolutely.
And your aunts and uncles.
I look at a couple of grandchildren who have the same green eyes that my father had.
Oh, yeah.
And I say, huh? How did that happen? You know?
Yeah,
but it just, so we are close.
That's great.
And it is good.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've had a very good day. Is there anything else you want to share before we?
No, just that I'm happy that to be here.
Okay.
I hope to be here for a long time to come.
Yeah. I'm fascinated by your business. I mean, at 74 years old, you guys are going gung ho. It sounds like you're.
I have one of my children in the business.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask.
Okay.
There was a question that kept popping.
Okay.
There has to be somebody that's.
Yeah, my son Bryce is a. He runs the technical side of the business at this stage of the game.
Yeah. It's starting to make more sense.
Yeah. Okay. Right. And he has good help.
Yeah.
And
the only reason I say that is because oftentimes I think once you get in your 70s and heading mid 70s, I think to see somebody actually building a business is usually somebody else involved that's close.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because that's the drive, and that's what keeps the spark alive, and that's usually the formula of successful generational businesses. There has to be one very involved from each generation.
Yeah, the people involved in business should have a youthful side, no matter what their age is.
Right.
You know, when I lose that, when I become the old sourpuss, I don't want to be involved anymore.
Oh, you're far from that. Yeah, I think you could pull it off even without your son, as a spark. But that certainly has got to help.
Yeah, but the experience level is nice to have for them.
Yeah,
and it's been working very well for us.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks you for joining us here tonight on Reflections on Granby. Our guest was Roger Hernsdorf, and as always, you can view our shows on www.gctv16.org or Channel 16 on the Cox stations. And we appreciate you joining us here tonight. Thank you.